Sure, my name's Paul Doroshenko. I'm a lawyer in Vancouver. I'm a former member of the BC Liberal Party and a former volunteer in the BC Liberal Party. Gordon Campbell became, over the course of his time as Premier, recognized for his addressing issues with respect to First Nations people, trying to look at the Kelowna Accord. Basically what we need in this country is something equivalent to the Marshall Plan to address the inequality in First Nations. It's a dark spot in our current culture, that we've got so many people in First Nations communities who are living in poverty. In Canada, it's hard to believe there's nothing like that in Germany or France or Sweden or Norway or Finland. This level of poverty in certain groups. So I was encouraged by that, and I was encouraged by his take on environmental issues. He was, they created a bunch of new ecological reserves, and we also saw the carbon tax. And the carbon tax, to me, makes perfect sense. Tax carbon, and you're going to reduce it. And at the time he brought that in, I was discussing it with him, and he said, Paul, just wait. This is just the beginning. We can either be behind the ball on this, we can be in the wrong. In history, we would like history to judge us, properly, and that we looked at this problem of increasing greenhouse gases, and humans were smart enough to address it. And he said, I don't want to be on the wrong side of history, and I was with him for that. Then, of course, he was pushed out as a result of the HST, and that was really a botched rollout and a big mistake. I don't know that it was something that they had considered prior to the election, if they had seriously considered it. I know they were in a very dire financial situation right after that election, and that was likely the reason to do it, despite the fact that it was so politically unwise. But in any event, of course, Gordon Campbell was pushed out, and ultimately Christy came in. And in that election, I was not a fan of Christy when she was in opposition, and I didn't really like her method of attacking the opposition when she was in government. But then she was out of government for a number of years, and was then the leader of the Liberal Party. And I took a sign for her in the campaign. I went over to the campaign office, I met her, and I took a sign. And I was just so disappointed. We had 4 years, or a couple of years at that point actually, of Christy before we had the next election. And the election after that, I didn't take a sign, and I took a David Eby sign. I decided I was going to vote for the candidate at that time, and not so much the party. So what's happened now is we've seen something that this was the beginning of a trend I observed when Gordon was still Premier. We were at the Christmas party, and somebody who was speaking before Gordon said, I want to tell everybody about this Club 300. If you donate $300 to the Liberal Party, you're going to get all of this special access. You're going to get invited to all of these events, and you're going to be able to do this and that. And just when they announced that, I was uncomfortable with it. I thought it was distasteful. I didn't think that you should be paying to have access to politicians. It seemed, it's going to create a little special group of people who are going to be in a position to get favors, and I didn't like it. And Gordon came around the room that day, and he came up to me, and I talked about it. I said, look, I don't know how I feel about this Club 300 thing, and he kind of rolled his eyes and said, somebody in the party thought this was a good idea. And I got the sense that he didn't think it was a good idea. But in any event, we've seen this expand in such a way that we're seeing donors who donate thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars, and they're getting all sorts of benefits. We see people who end up on boards. We see people who are getting contracts for real estate and development and things like that. So basically, we've moved to a situation now where the donors to the Liberal Party are getting the benefits of it, and everybody else is shut out. And this is, cronyism in its worst. It's the type of thing that you expect to see in a third world dictatorship. And we've got that now in BC. And on top of that, the other thing that really irked me was $12-15 million that they were spending on advertising in a 4-month period. That they announced all of this extra money to go into advertising. And the justification for that was the opioid overdose crisis. And almost none of the ads, I didn't see any on TV for that. I saw lots of ads running, talking about the budget being balanced, and suggesting that if you vote for the Liberals, you're going to get your MSP premiums cut and then eventually reduced to eliminated entirely. And that was the suggestion of the ads. And they were spending, now we're talking about spending millions of dollars, not even, it was chump change what the NDP was spending back when they were in. But Liberals spending millions of taxpayer dollars, money that could go to children in public care and hospitals and schools and all of those good social things. So I looked at that and I just thought, this many years of Christy Clark's Liberals, there's things about Gordon Campbell's Liberals I didn't necessarily like. I don't expect to agree with everything the government does, but I expect there to be honesty. And I expect there to be good management, and I don't expect that politicians should be in there to benefit themselves. And whether it's a benefit directly paid to them or a benefit paid to their party through donations, it's wrong. As far as I'm concerned, it's bribery. And I can't support any party that does that. Now, when it comes to the NDP, I can tell you that I've looked at my candidate as David Eby. He's a very smart guy. I've talked to him a number of times. I've talked to Mike Farnsworth, and Horgan seems like a intelligent, compassionate, decent, honest person. So the proof will be in the pudding if they get elected. But right now they are a vastly superior choice for British Columbians than the BC Liberals. When it comes to the Greens, I could tell you back when I was a Liberal and I was wanting Gordon Campbell to be elected, it was an ongoing joke for us, the Greens. If the Greens would get a sign up, we'd be cheering for them because we knew that, in the vast majority of cases, people would assume that the Green Party were environmentalists and that they were, further on the extreme of the environmental spectrum than the NDP. The interesting thing is that may have been the case back then, but what we've seen a right shift in the Green Party, and you look at Andrew Weaver. He was apparently a former Liberal. He's basically implied or suggested, and maybe further than that he would form a coalition with the Liberals to prop up the Liberals in the event of a minority government. Voting Green does not make sense if you're looking at replacing the Liberals. It just doesn't make any sense because it's a first past the post system. They have no chance, 0% chance of getting elected. And are they really green? Are they really the green option? It looks to me like they're more like almost designed to try and sap away votes from the NDP and not really offer anything. I don't see that much of their platform talking about environmental issues. We have a crisis. And it's not a crisis that's going to end. It's carbon. We extract carbon from the earth. It's trapped in the earth. We extract it in coal and oil and all sorts of natural gas, and then we dump it into our atmosphere, and it's taken billions of years for that carbon to get in there, and now it's being released at a rapid rate by humans. And this is something we need to address, and Gordon Campbell was addressing it, but have we seen Christy Clark address this at all? Well, no, she's just into extracting more and more of it, and dumping more of it into our atmosphere, and this is an ongoing concern.